If you have spent your entire life feeling too much, too sensitive, too emotional, or like you're constantly taking in more data than the people around you, and you've responded by pushing harder, doing more, and trying to fix it yourself by being normal, today's episode is your official permission to stop. Burnout for a highly sensitive or neurodivergent woman isn't about a heavy workload. It's the accumulated cost of years spent masking who you actually are. It's the bill your body eventually sends you when you've ignored your own boundaries for too long. Welcome to Healthy Buzz, the podcast for women who are craving honest answers in a supportive community. Hosted by Brandee, a certified nutrition therapy practitioner who believes your body isn't broken, but the narrative around women's health is. Each week, we're diving deep into holistic health topics, challenging the one-size-fits-all approach, and empowering you to trust your own informed intuition. Get ready to feel seen, supported, and seriously informed. This is Healthy Buzz, where collaboration meets unfiltered transparency in women's health. Today, I am joined by Amanda Baker of Collaborative Sage to discuss the intersection of high sensitivity, ADHD, and burnout. We're going to talk about the hidden engine of overachieving, what recovery looks like for the neurodivergent brain, and how to finally reframe your story from broken to brilliant. From learning how to navigate in a heart-led culture from her Peace Corps service to navigating burnout in her passion-driven corporate role, Amanda learned about empathy and how it adds a complex layer to our experience. In its highest form of expression, serves as a competitive advantage. She's a collaborative sage, a strength-driven optimist, and a passionate connector with a knack for sparking transformation and inclusivity. With a career forged with 15 years of inclusive facilitation and several certifications, Amanda blends strategic clarity, emotional depth, and energetic connection into coaching, training, and consulting that leads you, your team, and your business to the best outcome. She works with rising and established leaders and businesses who are driven to bring heart to the center of what they do and how their teams can operate to create environments that thrive. Amanda, welcome to today's show.
Thank you, Brandee.
So before we get started, I want to have our audience chime in here. If you identify as a highly sensitive person, go ahead and drop a little emoji in the comment to let us know that, hey, you know what? We see you. We're here. This episode is all for you because we're in this world where everybody is asking you to do more. And you know what we're going to ask of you today? Maybe do a little less. So Amanda, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I would love to hear more about your story. Share with our audience how you came into this role or what you are now. I know that you had your own journey when it came to burnout. So give us a little peek behind the curtains as to who you are and how you got here.
I started with the Peace Corps back in 2009 and learned a lot about adult education and facilitation and loved it, even though that was a highly dysregulated experience for me. Learned so much about sensitivity there, but always wanted to be doing learning and sharing learning with others. So from Peace Corps, I found jobs that I knew how to find, which was mostly admin, but tried to get into learning wherever I could, even within those roles, and eventually was able to move into learning and development in the corporate world. So loved that job. It was a job I realized I'd always wanted. It was one I'd even tried to start on my own, but didn't have the confidence yet. And in my growth in corporate through learning and development, I got a lot of really cool work to do. I connected with people all over the world, and it was always too much work to do. So I couldn't balance that with my own boundaries because I didn't have any of those, and felt really deeply about all the work, which meant I was always feeling a lot of things. And eventually, as we'll get into today, led myself into quite the state of burnout, emergency room stuff, lots of details there to hear about, but went on a leave of absence and decided it was time to set my own stage. So here we are today with Collaborative Sage, where I do primarily the same as I did in my corporate role, but more bespoke, more in depth with the clients that I have, where we talk about how to bring to life the kind of environment that you want to have in your workplace, considering that everyone's approaching work from a different perspective and a different angle.
I love that. So can you take us back to that burnout? What did this burnout actually look like for you? Was there a specific moment when you realized that your body was finally actually sending you these messages that for years you kind of ignored and put your earmuffs on to ignore the signals your body was giving you?
That's 100% what I did. Put my earmuffs on. Yeah. I'd heard throughout my life and my career, you're too sensitive. You're taking too much of this to heart. Like, just put a degree of separation between you and your work. It's not that serious. You're overthinking things. And I saw a really good meme that said, when you tell an overthinker that they're overthinking things, their response is like, what, you think I didn't think about that already? Like, that's just the way my brain works. It doesn't help to hear that. So that would happen all the time. And I eventually deal with it, I guess, but not very grounded, with much groundedness. And eventually we had a lot of leadership changes. I was increasing in seniority and a lot more work to do and a lot more influencing to do, and just had a really hard time in 2024 where I was in the front of C-suite execs and having to put on a face the whole time and making it in those spaces, but then crashing afterwards. And then leadership changes happened in the midst of all of that. So they were like, Amanda, this is your opportunity. And that felt like not the right step, because my teammates were also well qualified for what came next for us. And being super sensitive, I didn't want to overstep or dismiss other people's skill sets too, right? So it didn't feel right to take that for myself. And I was in this constant cognitive dissonance about what should be happening, while I was also finding that I was grinding my teeth so much so that they started cracking. And I was working 60-hour weeks with bronchitis that ended up turning into pneumonia because I kept at it for 6 weeks, and the pneumonia lasted for 6 to 8 weeks because I just never took time to recover, because there was too much work to do and I cared about the work. And if it stopped, oh my God, what would be the aftermath of that? And then I had a couple of emergency room visits. And then because of all of this stuff that was happening physically, and the dysregulation that comes from that, I also ended up having a couple of panic attacks and a few mental breakdowns. And it became very clear that I needed to take a leave of absence because I just wasn't functioning on almost any cylinders at that point. I didn't have what I needed. My nervous system was in 100% dysregulation 100% of the time. Yeah, it was tough. Physically painful. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more about that nervous system dysregulation? How is that showing up in your body in the day-to-day?
Well, for those who identify as neurodivergent, or anyone really, there's a hypervigilance. Like, your shoulders are tight all the time. You get chronic neck pain because you're just always anticipating the next thing to happen and trying to figure out how to anticipate any negative responses so that you can field those before they end up hurting because you have rejection sensitive dysphoria. It's almost physically painful to manage the amount of work when it shouldn't be physically painful to do cognitive work. The work was learning. So it wasn't a physical activity. And I never could feel quite comfortable. And I'd be in the office and somebody would walk up behind me and I just startle so bad because I'm in hyper-focus mode or whatever, because my nervous system is just not quite grounded. And so even if they made noise coming up, I would still jump out of my skin, and no harm done. I was just jumpy literally because I couldn't stay calm ever. And then I'd have to do workshops, which I loved. But then, of course, any speaker or facilitator knows you still get anxious in front of that. And then add to that normal level of anxiousness your dysregulated nervous system, and you're like clenching the whole way through your workshop that you are actually excited to do, but it's still physically painful. So the work hurts literally, even if it's work that you like doing. And the people that you work with that you respect and know mean really well, like, it's hard to maintain strong relationships with people when you feel like you're always on shaky ground, mostly just because you yourself feel like you're on shaky ground. No one's making me feel that way. I just did all the time.
Yeah, very interesting. It's kind of like when you talk about that startle effect too, your cortisol was just so, because your body thought you were being chased by a bear every fucking day, even though you're like, I'm just here at work and I just really care and really passionate about the things I'm doing and I'm a high achiever. Yeah, your body was finally like, we cannot keep up at this pace anymore.
No, and there's so much about, people are getting so much better at articulating now that you can do all of this regulation work. But if you're in a constant state of dysregulation, then those self-care things aren't restorative. They're just getting you back to ground zero, which will soon become unground zero again, because you're going to get dysregulated again when you're not able to achieve like a normal stasis. So one day after the other, it was just, like a bear was chasing me.
Yeah. So you eventually came to understand yourself as being neurodivergent, specifically ADHD and highly sensitive. So first, can we talk about what highly sensitive personality actually means, because a lot of people may not know. They might be like, oh, that kind of sounds like me, but what does that actually mean? And we can talk a little bit more about the ADHD, but then how did that realization change your narrative around your specific situation and how you respond to things around you, specifically when it came to your work you were doing?
So I learned about highly sensitive people from a book by Elaine Ahrens called The Highly Sensitive People or a Person or something like that. And it was so enlightening because throughout life, you hear you're too sensitive or you take things too personally and you're like, why is that? Like, why aren't other people feeling like this is personal? Or why am I making it about me when it's not about me? And it's just this almost literal transfer of information goes into my system and I have an automatic ownership over it without even realizing that's what's happening. So when I'm perceiving feelings from other people, I take them on as my own, not knowing that I did that. And then it makes my head swim all the time. And I'm just constantly questioning, am I doing something wrong? Or is this person okay? Or do I need to fix it? I always felt responsible for how people felt around me. And my senses are always heightened. So sounds are super loud. And an example would be I was at an In-N-Out Burger one day in California and they were doing the potato smasher thing. And it felt like in the Tom and Jerry cartoon where Jerry's like slamming Tom's head with these cymbals, like that's what my head feels like. It's like swimming in this reverberation. And so the high sensitivity, it doesn't just mean you have big feelings. It means you literally feel everything sensory in a magnified way. And smells, sounds, colors, really pretty colors. I do love those. And then I learned more about how much of that actually aligns with what they're defining as ADHD. And your nervous system is on high alert all the time. So there's always exorbitant amounts of input to sort through, which keeps you from feeling like you can handle all of it because you can't even sort all of it. You can't put it in its neat box and go about your merry way. Like it's all just mixed together all the time because it's constant influx. And so when you're trying to relate to other people, you're feeling what they're feeling, even if you're not meant to, and you don't even need to feel what they're feeling. It just is this transference happens. And so you're responding to more than is being asked in the moment. And as far as the work itself, like facilitation, I feel like that's a skill, that's a gift to have, because then I can read the room and respond to the room. And I love doing that and gauging what the space actually needs. But it can really overwhelm the system when it's being used every day, whether by choice or not. So I would say it helped me to understand that maybe it's not so much that the system or the place I was in was harmful to me. It just wasn't a fit for me. I was not a fit for it. And I'd spent my whole life trying to fit what I was supposed to be doing. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I just be normal? Why can't my executives function? Like, why can't I just do this work I love doing? And then instead I freeze all the time or I'm down on myself all the time. And it was because I wasn't supposed to fit. I guess that's the end result learning is I wasn't supposed to fit. But in the moment, it felt like I was a failure, like I always had to prove myself all the time. And no one was really asking me to do that. I just always felt like I had to because nothing felt normal ever.
I think that's so important for people to realize, because I think a lot of times women put a lot of pressure on themselves the way it is, but then for the highly sensitive person, it feels just even more enormous. Like you're just carrying so much weight and you are processing every bit of input that's coming in, and your body, I think, is like, what do I do with this? Where do we put this? How do we manage this? How do we fix this? So you're going a million miles a minute inside your body, even though you might be like cool and calm as a cucumber on the outside. And I see this a lot with my clients who not even are highly sensitive, but just are taking on too much. We call them a duck in my industry, that like on top of the water, they look like they're cool. They got it together. Underneath, their little feet are kicking so fast. And they don't even realize it sometimes too, that they are in this overstimulation, overstressed out situation for so long. And then it turns into burnout where, fuck, I can't do this anymore. What do I need? So how do you ground yourself now, knowing that information about yourself? How are you able to ground yourself in those situations?
Well, first step is to get out of those situations. And to be fair, we're not meant to be escaping. That's not the point. Someone once told me you don't heal in the environment that injures you. That stuck with me because you do require recovery. We need to be able to recover. And if we're constantly being barraged by the thing that's hard to manage, we're not able to get to that stasis point where we can recover. And so, going from catastrophizing left and right all day, every day, to taking a leave of absence was the necessary step for me. And through that leave of absence, I learned so much more about the fact that rest wasn't just a lazy indulgence of mine. It was actually a requirement. I grew up, as most people do, like you're burning daylight. Don't take a nap. You won't be able to sleep later. Like get up, do something productive, do your homework, whatever it is. And I would just want to take a nap. It wasn't smiled upon. And so you grow up thinking naps are not the smart thing to do. You shouldn't nap during the day. Oh gosh, because you're supposed to be working during the day. And I ended up taking naps. And like I went through a coaching program where I was being coached by my peers, and fortunately they really hammered into me like, oh no, rest is something that you actually need. It's not just an indulgence. And so if you want to get up early, fine, but don't be mad at yourself if you need to take a nap at 10 a.m. because you worked out at 5. Also, don't work out at 5. Why do you do that to yourself? But like take a nap at 10 and then you get the sleep that you maybe missed because you got up early. And so I take naps literally now. I also am self-employed, so I made it so that I can set my own schedule. And I'm still building a business, which means there's a lot of stress that comes with that too. So I won't say that I have mastered regulation. Like that's a lifelong journey. I had a whole year of laying on the floor, panic crying. It was a hard year. Resource scarcity and figuring out business is not an easy trip. So it still was better than being in a corporate role where I was required to be on all the time, as hard as it was. And so the regulation comes with sort of embracing this idea that the pain is not because you're doing anything wrong. Those panic attacks were things that were so out of my control that I couldn't even fathom how to start managing them. And so it was this letting go, and that feels so impossible to hear. But like, what else are you going to do? It's just like you throw your hands up, and I guess like I'm doing the work I know I can. So I just got to be okay with that. And sleeping, you can't really just separate yourself from high stakes situations to take a nap, but sleeping enough really helps in those situations when you encounter them. And then when you're in them, you practice your breathing and your grounding. Like I'm fiddling right now, like that's what I do to regulate, and just so subconsciously fidgeting. And then when you have a moment where your system's getting overwhelmed, it becomes easier to remember those grounding techniques, like taking a deep breath or noticing what your senses are experiencing and taking a step above the situation instead of being fraught within the situation. But then still like giving yourself additional time afterwards. Like I know now when I go in and facilitate an event, I do a lot of work leading up to it. I'm a hyper-focused person. That's just how I operate. So that's another thing, is accepting that you operate a specific way instead of having to do things a certain way. But then you go and you facilitate this workshop, and I need 2 days to just turn my brain off after that, because I've worked so much leading up to that I have to give myself permission to not try and do things for the next 2 days. And then I'm good. But if I try and do things, I'm in this brain fog for days and days after. I mean, rest really is for me the answer. And the more I rest, the more regulated I am more of the time, so that those regulation activities become restorative instead of just grounding.
Sounds like you've done a lot of introspective work to learn what your body really needs, and then honoring that despite what society is telling you what you should be doing. You're kind of being a little rebel over there and being like, no, fuck this.
Yes, I need a fucking nap.
Yep.
Take a nap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know I need 2 days recovery after a big event. Amazing. That's so huge. I also feel like that's giving you time to reflect back on the success of that event too, versus like, okay, what's the next event? What's the next thing? And a lot of entrepreneurs can get stuck in that cycle of like, I need to keep achieving and keep going. And we forget the pause to be like, that was fucking amazing what I just did. And I need to take some time to celebrate it, recognize it, and like give myself a little downtime to now be able to come back and be able to create and facilitate something again in the future. Otherwise, if you keep going from a burnout state, no matter what your career is, if you keep trying to push when you're burned out, you're not going to be the best employee, the best leader, the best entrepreneur, the best, even then how that translates into your home life, the best partner, the best parent. That's all going to start to crumble when you're in this burnout state continuously.
Very fast, and the burnout, it doesn't just recover during a 3-month leave of absence. It takes time to get used to recognizing your processes, right? At one of the workshops I did last month, there was so much work leading up to it that I physically started to feel my frontal lobe feel burny and spongy. it was like, I don't know, like somebody infused it with some liquid that like made it expand and burn at the same time. I don't know how else to describe it, but I'm now like so much more physically conscious of what burnout feels like. And I was like, oh yeah, I definitely need to sleep for a few days after this. And it's like you said, like entrepreneurs, there's always a grind. You've got to always make sure you're securing what's next. And if you don't take the time to see a success for what it was, then it just feels like nothing is ever good enough. And not only are you trying to push through burnout, but you're chasing an impossible improvement where you're not needing an improvement, right? Like what's next and what's better. And not to say we shouldn't always strive to improve and be better. I'm a lifelong learner, but there are moments where you have to acknowledge what you did to get even just this far and achieve this one thing, and how integrating that whole experience is how you fortify for the next one and add to the next one. So taking the time is actually what makes you better instead of seeking more.
Absolutely. Hey, Healthy Buzz listeners. Are you feeling like you're constantly struggling to hit your protein goals? Like, you should be getting more protein for energy, muscle support, and overall well-being, but you're not quite for sure how to make that happen without sacrificing flavor or other important nutrients. I get it. That's why I created the High Protein Power Plan, a delicious and easy to follow 7-day meal plan designed specifically for women who want to effortlessly reach 130 grams of protein or more every single day. Head on over to bcw.bcollectivewellness.com/high protein recipes to download your High Protein Power Plan today. So something that I know that you have talked about is RDS, or rejection sensitive dysphoria. So this is such a light bulb moment for a lot of people. So what I would love for you to do is can you explain a little bit more what that is, why it acts as this hidden engine behind what the people pleasing and chronic never enough feeling that so many high achieving women are feeling?
So I'm still learning a lot about it myself, and I'm certainly no expert in it, but it's given me some context because I certainly have it. People telling you you're too sensitive or you're too much your whole life, you start to feel like there's something wrong with you. And then you start hearing what's not there because you're being hyper vigilant, trying to detect threats. Like, I better watch out for the next person who's going to tell me that, or the next person who's going to lay into me because I hurt their feelings or something. Or at work, I need to make sure I'm anticipating any pushback so that I know how to respond to it instead of be overtaken. Because I've had moments where people come at me in a meeting and I just freeze. I shut down because it's either that or cry. So I got to do something. But the shutdown is because I don't have the resources to respond. And the rejection feels like I can't hear feedback if I don't feel like the intention is to help me. If I feel like it's to call something out and, Amanda, you did this wrong, you need to fix it, instead of, hey, Amanda, let's talk about what to do differently next time. It's just like a world of a difference, but it feels different. Like I have this physical reaction to people criticizing me. And it got so bad that that last year I was in corporate, I had a new boss come in and she was great. We loved her. And we were learning about projects. I was showing her some projects and she was responding with some rightful discernment. And I was feeling defensive because we had worked so hard on this stuff without any guidance. And I'm sort of reactive with her. And she's taking it in stride. Like, she's fantastic. I hated that she got there and then I had to leave because she would have been fun to work with. But I was just at the state I was at. And I'm sitting here sort of reacting to her commentary, and there's a bunch of leaders around us because we were at a leadership retreat. And I'm feeling not just the conversation with her, but I'm feeling everybody's eyes on me at the same time. And I'm feeling embarrassed because I'm being reactive, and I shouldn't be reactive. That's not professional. So I'm just anticipating that they're all like going to be finding me not fit for whatever was happening. And I was speaking with someone who had sort of been in my corner while all this stuff transition was happening. I was like, gosh, I'm so sorry that I was acting that way. And she's like, oh my God, please, I'm just trying to make sure you're okay. Like, you're not doing anything wrong. And another woman said, oh, you're just finding your leadership voice. And here I am just still so concerned that they're all going to find something wrong with me because I'm being reactive. It's not even that someone's actually rejecting me. It's that I'm feeling like they're rejecting me because I'm judging myself over here because of all the things I learned were wrong with me over the years. And it makes it so that I don't put myself in vulnerable positions with dating, for instance. Like, forget that, not really, but that's hard. That's a hard one because like, rejection sucks. It takes days and weeks to recover from sometimes. Like, the crying happens, and it's just the worst part about it is that people aren't always rejecting you. It just feels like they are. It's like this hell spiral, like you can't get out of. the mental churn of it. And there's so many other ways to articulate it, but I think the way it shows up mostly in work is perfectionism, to get it right, to anticipate things before they come to head, and spending way too long working on something because you want to get it extremely right, or waiting too long because you're afraid you're not going to get it right. Or executive function happens in there too, dysfunction happens in there too, where you're not quite able to take action because you're so afraid of not doing things the way you're supposed to do them. And yeah, it causes a lot of freeze and ungroundedness for sure.
So, kind of what I'm taking away from that is that because of the highly sensitive person that you are, that you take a lot of ownership to things. You feel really connected to the things that you are creating or a part of. And then when there's maybe a little bit of criticism or critique around something, it can feel like they're critiquing you personally. And you take everything a little bit more personal. So it comes like, oh my gosh. And your body goes into this like fight or flight situation. Like, I'm going to fight you on this. No, I'm going to defend what I did. And like, why are you questioning me? Like, no, can't you see my point of view from this? And even though you're like, and I am open to the feedback, but sometimes that feedback feels like more of a personal attack rather than like a feedback on like the overall like project or issue.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what's going on when it's happening. It's like, this is a part of me and I put so much of heart into it, and you're criticizing it, which means there's something wrong with me because I'm the one who produced it. And yeah, I'm always like, give me feedback preemptively so that I can be the one seeking it instead of be surprised by it. And it still will end up hurting sometimes. But yeah, you're right. I identify with the work that I do so deeply because I care so much about it that somebody telling me, oh, you need to just separate from work a little bit. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'll never know what that means. Sorry. The work I do means something to me. So yeah.
Yeah. I think too, when it comes to the feedback, I know I feel this a lot as a business owner too, is that when I am getting somebody's feedback, I like to reframe myself to be like, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and we don't necessarily have to share that opinion. 100%, I can take that information, read it, step away from it, come back, like give myself some time to process. There's a difference between responding and reacting, but sounds like when you're dealing with RSD, you're kind of just like, there's a hard time separating that responding and reacting. And you're just feeling so connected to that you're just like, oops, I'm just reacting a little bit more than responding sometimes, which is fine, right? As long as you are starting to recognize that and have the awareness about it for yourself, then you can start to work with that and understand how your body responds and how what your brain is perceiving things as.
Yes, and forgiving yourself for having a reaction where you wished you'd responded instead. And I will say getting feedback in writing is easier for me because it's not an energetic exchange at that point, or at least it's maybe a diluted one. But it's still, I can say all I want. I'm open to hearing from you, and I'll still have a little ping of, got to step away from this for a minute. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about that recovery phase, because you did kind of touch on it about kind of what your recovery looks like. And I don't think there's ever going to be an endpoint when it comes to recovery, but we can see this like Instagram version of like self-care with bubble baths and these retreats and this breath work. And oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. But what did actual recovery have to look like for you? Give us the messy version of like what healing a neurodivergent nervous system actually looks like.
So yes, there are those Instagram elements. Like floating in salt water is a major diffuser of tension. Someone once said it like clears your aura out, like whatever that means to you. But it certainly helps me. I feel super calm after those. But those are just one moment. You've still got all the mental chatter that keeps re-triggering stuff. And you've got years of rest to catch up on because you actually needed sleep and didn't get it. And so what it looked like initially was sleeping for 2 weeks, doing a lot of crying. I was crying a lot, like letting it out. And I felt a lot of shame for failing what I was supposed to be able to handle. And my leave of absence was just a lot of sleep, not pushing myself to try and work any more than an hour a day on whatever I was trying to get excited about doing next. And literally just keeping it to an hour on purpose so that I would not overwhelm my brain. And, I started a business in the middle of all that. And I started a business, quote unquote, because there is so much unlearning to do and learning at the same time. And For me, the recovery was the unlearning. Spent the first several months trying to prove myself to people I didn't even know. And when you're approaching it as trying to prove yourself, it's always going to be perceived as you're not quite there yet. And I had imposter syndrome like you wouldn't believe. So the recovery took a lot of introspective work. It's a lot more knowing where things are, where feelings are in your body and letting them happen. And then maybe also processing what it was so that you can really fully understand. If you're like me and you need that intellectual understanding too, like, what is it that I'm letting go of here? Why was it stuck in the first place? Never being good enough at the job to get the promotion I wanted when I wanted it, even though I was getting promoted here and there. Or saying I wanted to do things, but never being given permission at work to do it because there were reasons why some people did stuff and other people didn't, or were given permission to. And running something on my own meant I had to actually own this confidence that almost in every review I ever had, they're like, you do so much work, you do such great work, but you really should work on your confidence. And it's like, I have utter confidence in my skill set, but I don't demonstrate that because I'm anticipating what's going to be said. So the confidence meant getting to this point where I stopped anticipating what people were going to say, which, ties back to RSD. But I had to just let go of everything. I had to let go of what I thought about myself. I had to start absorbing this positive feedback I would get about what I am really good at and what I do help people with, and know that that's a truth, and keep remembering that when I'd go down my little spirals of self-rejection or whatever, or panic. And eventually I got to the point where I kept on applying for jobs because I needed resources and I wasn't getting clients. I didn't really want the jobs. I kept getting rejected by the jobs. And eventually I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to apply for any more jobs anymore because I don't even want the jobs. I don't have an answer yet, but tonight I'm not going to worry about it. And then I did a workshop on emotional regulation that night. And it was like almost more for me than anyone in the audience, but it was so perfect because that was the kind of work that I want to be doing, even if it wasn't paid. I just fully felt like I could let go of everything else. I slept. I cried and I slept. I did that workshop and then everything switched after that. And I got clients and I got work and I felt more confident, and it was like night and day. So I had to unlearn enough to stop pulling for answers where I didn't even want them to come from anymore. And that's a lot of physical, emotional, and mental work. There's a lot of mental work in there. Being willing to look at the stuff that causes you emotional pain is also intellectual. What people told you repeatedly starts to feel so ingrained. It's that unlearning of that, unboxing and unlearning of that.
So a question I have for you is, how are you navigating the conversations with the people around you when you realize that you're like a highly sensitive person and that you have some ADHD tendencies, these kind of different neurodivergent tendencies, so that you have the support from the people around you as well? Because that can be a kind of scary conversation to have with people and be like, hey, you know what? I got to throw up a little flag here, and I am realizing something about myself, and here's how you can show up and support me through this.
I feel fortunate to say I've had some really incredible learning in that regard because of supportive partnerships with people, because people who are supportive are open to hearing it. And it takes being brave and saying it in the first place. But there's this opportunity to say, I'm going to turn off for 2 days, but I'll be back online and talk to you in another 2 days, and then we'll catch up on everything. Or, I'm having this response and I don't think that that's a very relevant response to what was warranted. So let's have a conversation about it. And then fortunately, because of the people I'm partnering with are also doing a lot of introspective work, like we're able to go deep and vulnerable with each other about what I was feeling is this, but what I know to be true is this. And, having somewhat of a facilitated dialogue discussion. And those have been so incredible. Lots of emotional sharing happens, which for me means a lot. Safety in being open. I see this information all the time. I don't know that others do, but your algorithms help you out a little bit. I see so much about neurodivergence. And so I'd like to think that it's becoming more of a prevalent idea. I mean, I know it is because of all the stuff happening in our political economic system. But when I do a workshop about emotional regulation, it's like fair game to talk about it. And people will say, when we're talking about self-regulation strategies, they're like, oh, are these things that really help people who are on the spectrum thrive? And I was like, no. I do that as a baseline. I have to like add to that to get the grounded place that you are trying to get with this information. And I have no problem saying that in a room full of these men who are my age and older. Like, I don't care anymore because I'm still showing up. It's like a normalization of it. And that's a really privileged perspective to have because I've not been in any harmful situations around it for me. Emotionally harmful, maybe, but no danger. I've never been threatened by it. It's more just a realization for me. And I've never had to navigate too differently because fortunately I have a mom who's also neurodivergent and we're just learning these things about how to articulate that. But growing up, it was like, okay, stop, breathe before you take your next step. And so there was always some learning throughout life about how to manage it without even knowing what it was. So for me, it's almost normal to say like, oh yeah, I'm super neurodivergent. I'm sensitive about this, that, and the other thing. And people might take that how they will, but for me, it feels good to just own it. The personal side of that is, yeah, like when I'm in a conversation with someone, especially a new person or in a new area, I'm still in that hypervigilant mode. Like I'm still receiving a lot more purposely, even if subconsciously, because I'm trying to detect threat when they're not displaying anything threatening. It's just the way that I approach newness. My antennas go higher when I'm trying to get used to something. So I'll always be overwhelmed after first interactions. But as trust builds, I can speak more freely about these things and not worry that they're going to take it or not. So I think having this awareness of what I need and being comfortable asserting that is a good thing. And then also just building my work life around my needs is really important.
I love this. Of course, this did not happen overnight for you. It was years and years of learning. And you've done a lot of research on it to understand the highly sensitive person. What does this mean? How do I regulate the rejection sensitive dysphoria? What does that mean? And how do I show up? And how does that affect my body? You're open to learning so that you understand. So then you can translate what you're learning and understanding about your body to those who are close and around you so that when you have more of a reactive response, you also can be like, hey, I think I'm processing this a little bit different. Maybe we take a quick time out and we can talk about this later.
Yeah, and I just want to hit on one thing that you just said right there is I'm the one having this reaction. This is not something that someone did to me. And the reason I bring that up is because so much of how I felt when I left work was resentment. And I don't like that I felt that way because they were really good people. And so there was an unlearning of the resentment too. Being able to talk about it comes from being able to own that this is me, this is not them. And there are situations I wouldn't put myself in again, knowing the level of care that was absent versus what I would prefer. But that doesn't mean they were bad people. It just means there's a difference of needs and what was available at the time. So knowing that it's not about them and being able to articulate that, like I'm having a response here and I know that what I need right now is to take a step away and I would love to talk more with you when I'm through my body's reaction to what's going on right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for the woman who is listening right now, who's running on empty and telling herself she just needs to try harder or just do it one more time or give me another opportunity, I can do better. What is the one thing she needs to hear today to give herself permission to stop?
Who do you need to prove it to? And if your answer is always them, then maybe stop until you feel like it's not them anymore. And that's, of course, hard to do when livelihoods are at stake. But it's like you already have this power within you. And power might be misconstrued as many different things, but you have ability and skill and talent and experience that is so helpful to people. And so feeling like just give me another chance to get this right or do it better or let me get myself right. It's like, get something that's right for you. That I think is the permission I hope that people find is to find what's right for them instead of trying to find themselves right for others.
I love that. On that, I think that's perfect to wrap up because I feel like it's a mic drop comment right there. I know that you offer consultations to people. Can you tell me a little bit more about what those consultations are about and the work that you do?
Yeah, so when I started Collaborative Sage, my intent was and is to be able to help people and organizations build more connective environments for themselves, whether that's interpersonally or in an organization. And what that means is finding where trust can be built again if it was lost or built for the first time, and encouraging that that's not as impossible as it feels like. So if I'm working with a person one-on-one, we're talking about trusting themselves a lot of the time, because a lot of what people want solutions for are how to be successful or how to have the right answer for this or that thing. And I think there's a lot of that self-trust that we all have to learn along the way. And then trust with others means that you understand that everybody has a different perspective or a different way of processing information that can be really helpful. And so in workplace consultations, a lot of it is talking about behaviors you want to inspire for the team, or if leadership has some work to do, then how can we equip them with the right tools so that it can be more of an objective experience instead of a feelings-based experience? Or if there are feelings, how do we manage those and regulate those so that we can show up as the leader we want to be? So done strategy workshops and workshops on values-based behaviors and trust stewardship, and how do we get everyone on board with that type of work environment so that productivity happens, but also fulfillment and work-life balance and everything like that.
Amazing. So you guys can schedule a free consultation with Amanda, whether you want to talk through highly sensitive processing or personality that you're dealing with, whatever it may be, or if you see how she could help benefit your business and the whole environment there. So we'll put her contact information in the show notes. And besides that, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
I am on LinkedIn as Amanda Baker, but there are many of those out there in the world. So my URL is Baker A. Amanda at collaborativesage.com, and I'm on Insta as Collaborative Sage.
All right. We will link all of that in the show notes. Thanks so much for being here today, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Brandee. It was a great way to spend the time with Stephanie. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Healthy Buzz. I hope this conversation has left you feeling seen, supported, and ready to take the next step in your health journey. Love what you heard? Make sure you subscribe to Healthy Buzz so you never miss an honest conversation. And if you found this valuable, please take a moment to leave a review. I truly appreciate it. For exclusive weekly tips and holistic strategies, be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Remember, this isn't just nutrition, it's permission to trust your body. I'll catch you on the next episode of Healthy Buzz.